CEO's shocking mockery of a black waitress revealed a hidden truth that transformed everything. Mariah's heart raced as she navigated the bustling dining room, the scent of truffle oil and roasted garlic wafting through the air. It was another night at Luminous, an upscale restaurant buzzing with laughter and the clinking of fine glassware. Tonight it felt different. The air thrummed with the promise of opportunity and dread. She poured another glass of Cabernet for one of the corporate moguls, their sharp suits and polished shoes a stark reminder of the social ladder she climbed daily as a waitress. "Just a waitress, huh?" echoed a voice across the room, piercing through the din like a knife. CEO Donald Hartman leaned back, smugness dripping from his words. "You think you can cook?" He laughed, a cruel sound that reverberated around the table. Mariah felt a rush of heat flood her cheeks, her spine tingling with humiliation as laughter erupted from the crowd, the amused eyes of power fixated on her. In that instant, the weight of every judgment she'd faced felt like an anchor pulling her down. She was more than that, more than the stereotype someone like Hartman couldn't see past. With each chuckle, her resolve shrank. She retreated into the kitchen, desperation clawing at her throat. Hot tears threatened to spill, but she swallowed them back down. Here, surrounded by the scent of sautéed onions and the hurried chatter of cooks, Mariah had always found solace. That evening, she found Violet, her mentor, her ally. A retired chef, Violet had spent decades climbing the culinary ladder, her own scars deep. "Don't you let his words define you, girl," Violet said, wise eyes locking onto Mariah's. "Every dish tells a story. You have yours. That's your power." As the young waitress listened, she felt the flicker of her dreams reigniting. Cooking had been her sanctuary since childhood, and after every shift spent avoiding Hartman's type, she was ready to embrace her passion again. Weeks slipped by, each one dissolving frustration into focus. The kitchen became her classroom, Violet her stern but caring tutor. The two women would test recipes, tossing spices into simmering pots, creating magic with each new dish. Mariah began to pen her journey, creating a blog that captured her culinary artistry while sharing stories of the struggles that pushed her forward. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The blog began to gain traction, and before long, food critics were singing Mariah's praises. Then Donald Hartman stumbled upon her writing. A cold knot curled in her stomach when she saw his name in the comment section. He'd read her work, had seen her talent. He marveled at her skill, a stark juxtaposition to his earlier jeers. But would she dare to accept any validation from someone who had once belittled her? The tension weighed heavily on her, the struggle between pride and ambition tearing at her resolve. She could feel the eyes of her co-workers on her, whispers fluttering about her rise, about the unforgiving shadows of Hartman's past. But as she stood at the precipice of opportunity, the question loomed larger than ever. Could she truly allow him into her world? Her story was unfolding beautifully, yet painfully, the echoes of judgment threatening to drown her newfound voice. Would accepting his admiration mean erasing the sacred struggle that built her? The conflict pushed her to the edge, and as the kitchen hummed with life around her, she held her breath, trapped in a whirlwind of decision, stepping toward a future wrought with both promise and peril. The clatter of pans and the sizzling of ingredients filled the kitchen, a sanctuary where Mariah spun her dreams into reality. Yet, amidst the bustle and heat, Hartman's comment pressed down on her like an iron weight. His laughter echoed in her mind, haunting but also igniting a fiery determination, pushing her to confront her fears. Each evening after work, she met with Violet, who, with each session, unraveled layers of culinary complexity and creative expression. It was not just about cooking, it was about reclaiming her narrative, each recipe a testament to resilience. Good food doesn't just satisfy hunger, Violet insisted. It tells a story. Yours is one of triumph against odds. Keep at it, and you'll find your voice. Mariah took this wisdom to heart, using her blog not just to showcase her dishes, but to pour out her experiences, her journey evident with each post. The audience swelled, intrigued by the juxtaposition of her professional battles and culinary artistry. The blog became her armor, her shield against the world that demanded she fit into little boxes. This public platform slowly transformed her self-image, morphing her from an overlooked waitress into an emerging culinary voice. As the sunlight streamed through her apartment's window on her day off, Mariah sat with a steaming cup of coffee, contemplating her next moves. Hartman's name was a blade sheathed in nostalgia. He represented an old wound, yet also an opportunity. Should she respond to his comment, accept a collaboration, or entirely shut him out? The dilemma twisted inside her. He had the power to open doors, but his past tainted the key. The day bled on, thoughts swirling relentlessly. Frustration simmered beneath her skin, mixing awareness with ambition. With a deep breath, she switched on her laptop. Comments swarmed around her blog like a lively crowd. Many praised her culinary genius, but amidst that applause, a distinct response from Hartman caught her eye. An invitation to discuss a potential project. Her heart raced as she reread the email, hesitance blossoming into confrontation. Before she got lost in doubt, her fingers raced to type a reply, wrestling with her anger and the glimmer of genuine opportunity. Staring at the screen, she felt the weight shift. This is my chance, she thought, to prove him wrong. The tension danced through her, igniting an electric pulse of courage she hadn't felt in ages. It wasn't just about acceptance, it was about redefining judgment. Yet just as determination took root, the knot of uncertainty tightened. What if accepting his overture would mean compromising her hard-earned identity? Would collaborating with the very man who dismissed her as just a waitress bring her the recognition she sought, or lead to a backlash from those who had supported her? With a final stroke of her keys, she struck send. A thrilling rush disarmed her. After all, confrontation with Hartman would mean confronting the parts of herself she'd feared. Here she stood, at the intersection of past judgments and future potential. The kitchen door swung wide, signaling a defining moment. The scent of possibility filled the air as her own laughter rang out. Now the question lingered. What awaited her on the other side of this challenge? The moment of truth loomed large, palpable, and ready to unfold. The engine of change had started, and she was ready to rev it up. The air in Mariah's apartment felt different, charged with a heady mix of exhilaration and anxiety. As she peered out the window, the world outside seemed vibrant and alive, yet she was rooted in a whirlpool of contemplation. Hartman's proposal. Was it a pathway to her dreams, or a dangerous liaison that could unravel her hard work? Determined not to back away from this venture, Mariah reviewed her email once more, the words blurring momentarily as doubt threatened to gnaw at her confidence. What did it mean to partner with someone whose scorn had previously filled her days with uncertainty? She felt her heartbeat race, adrenaline pumping through her veins, igniting a flicker of defiance. She would not be defined by a singular moment of judgment. Instead, she envisioned using this collaboration to showcase her evolution, a testament to her resilience. That evening, under the gentle glow of the kitchen lights, she began jotting down her ideas. The ingredients in her pantry became metaphors for her journey, each spice a lesson learned, every essential oil a new perspective gained. With each stroke of her pen, she found clarity in her vision, a vision that danced between innovation and tradition. This project, if done right, could transcend her initial doubts. It could become a culinary narrative illustrating the complexities of identity and ambition. Violet's words echoed through her mind, urging her to see food as more than sustenance. It was a canvas. With every page of the notepad filling up, Mariah saw the possibility of crafting a series of dishes drawn from her cultural roots, infused with modern flair. She wrote about flavors that spoke to her heritage, bringing forth stories of her ancestors, their struggles infused into the recipes handed down through generations. It was finally time to claim that power, to turn every ounce of her historical pain into art on a plate. But as her ideas began to bloom into a coherent plan, dread crept back in. Hartman's track record, after all, wasn't just a trivial concern. He had capitalized on the culinary scene, building a brand synonymous with elitism. Would he stifle her vision in pursuit of his signature style? Or worse, would the collaboration strip her voice, leaving her merely a footnote in his culinary portfolio? She closed her notepad, the burst of inspiration draining as doubt loomed larger. Reflecting on her journey, Mariah realized it wasn't just about cooking, it was about authenticity. Each dish had to carry her essence, her story. This pivotal moment was about more than just a cooking project or proving Hartman wrong. It was about seizing her narrative without compromise. As she stood at the precipice of decision, the weight of her choices became more palpable. The kitchen, once a realm of freedom, now felt heavy with the specter of uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, she decided to confront this head-on. The next morning, she was ready to meet Hartman. She walked into the cafe where they agreed to meet, an arsenal of ideas clutched in her hand, each one representing her marketable vision. It was more than a meeting now. It was the moment where she'd decide whether to surrender her voice or declare the autonomy she sought. But as she entered, she noticed an unsettling sight. A table overflowing with familiar faces from her past, all whispering and smirking. Their laughter was filled with disdain. She faltered, the adrenaline from earlier sputtering out, replaced by a wave of vulnerability. What were they doing here? The time had come to face not only Hartman, but also the ghosts of her past. Would she allow their judgments to dictate her next step? As she squared her shoulders, empowered by her resolve, Mariah understood this was the moment where everything would change. And yet, uncertainty hung thick in the air, demanding resolution. One question loomed larger than the others. What would she choose to fight for in this moment of truth? As Mariah stepped fully into the cafe, the familiar laughter rang out, slicing through her resolve like a blunt knife. The sudden influx of memories, each tinged with the palpable humiliation of her past, pushed her heart into a frantic tempo. For a fleeting moment, she considered retreating, turning on her heel and escaping back into the safety of her apartment, where the culinary dreams danced mercifully without judgment. But the burgeoning strength within her tugged just as fiercely. This was not simply about confronting Hartman. It was about unearthing her own strength. She approached the table, where the remnants of Snickers gave way to a stillness heavy with skepticism, their gazes scanning her transformation. "What are you doing here?" she forced out, voice steady despite the trembling beneath her skin. It was a question not just for them, but for herself, an assertion of her newfound identity. "This is a public place, Mariah," one of the familiar faces replied, a smirk plastered across his features. He leaned back, arms crossed, enjoying the theatrics of the scene around him. "You're the one who seems out of place. What do you hope to gain, really?" Each word dripped with condescension, but rather than deflating her spirit, something clicked within her, a realization that she was more than their perceptions. "I'm here to take back what's rightfully mine," she asserted, not breaking her eye contact with him. This was about her journey. The struggles she had faced built the very spirit that now carried her forward. Firmly grasping her notepad, she took a step closer to the table, daring to draw the attention of the patrons nearby. It was symbolic of her commitment. This meeting was not solely about food. It was about bold reclamation. She began to outline her ideas for a new culinary project, each dish formed from a place of authenticity and cultural heritage. Instead of simply existing within the borders of someone else's expectations, I intend to push those boundaries, she proclaimed, her voice unwavering. The laughter around her simmered down further, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. As if grappling with her confidence, they exchanged glances that bordered on disbelief. Unlike in the past, when their mockery would leave her silenced and shrinking, this time she felt empowered, each word an act of rebellion against the shadows they cast upon her. There was strength in her discomfort. It was the catalyst she needed to propel herself forward. As she wrapped up her pitch, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursed through her veins. She could almost hear Hartman's footsteps behind her, a reminder of the opportunity that lay in front of her. Would he recognize her merit, or would she have to battle his disdain fused with the echoes of her past? She took a deep breath and squared her shoulders, mentally readying herself for the meeting that was about to unfold. When Hartman finally arrived, a slight smile on his lips, Mariah was surprised it didn't feel like a wince. This felt different. She was no longer the submissive underdog. She was an artist, ready to advocate for her narrative. "I have ideas," she began, as Hartman's attentiveness sparked her confidence. "But let me be clear, this is not about conforming to expectations." With her heart pounding in an exhilarating mix of fear and adrenaline, she realized the truth. This was not just about craft or career, it was a fight for her voice and identity. She would not be shaded by past critiques or Hartman's reputed authority. But what if Hartman didn't see her worth? What if those glimpses of disdain from her past echoed louder than her feelings of empowered ambition? She felt the weight of potential rejection looming, pressing on her chest like the ghosts of her earlier self. In this moment, Mariah stood at yet another precipice, one that could determine the path of her dreams or shatter the fragile confidence she had been cultivating. Would she allow fear to dictate, or would she shift her energy into focus and clarity as they engaged in careful negotiation? What she feared and what she aspired collided, each vying for supremacy. No longer simply a chef, she realized. She was a warrior in her own narrative, ready for battle, and yet the outcome remained uncertain as she took the first step into their conversation. Hartman settled into his chair, his demeanor radiating casual confidence that unnerved Mariah, but she steadied her breaths. She was here to reclaim her identity, not just for herself, but for all the moments she'd allowed others to shape her narrative. As he leaned forward, she felt the weight of his gaze piercing through the bravado she had constructed. "All right, let's hear it. You say you want to push boundaries," he prompted, skepticism lacing his tone. "What do you have to offer?" In that instant, doubt surged within her, but so did her recollections of late nights spent designing culinary creations from the heart, blending flavors of her childhood with modern techniques. She took a deliberate breath and answered, "My vision isn't just a menu, it's a story, my story. Each dish reflects heritage, resilience, and creativity that transcends the kitchen." Mariah's words hung in the air, a challenge soaked in conviction. Each syllable wove together an intricate tapestry that spoke not only of food, but of people, places, and experiences ignored for far too long, the laments of her past transforming into a clarion call for recognition. Hartman's posture shifted, curiosity creeping into his hard-nosed exterior, and she seized the moment. Imagine a menu that doesn't just satisfy hunger, but evokes the cultural richness of community. Each dish would tell a tale, like my grandmother's gumbo, a recipe passed down through generations, steeped in history and memories. She continued, her passion igniting the air around her. But it's more than just food. It's an exploration of identity that can resonate with so many. For the first time since stepping into the cafe, she sensed a shift. His eyes narrowed, contemplating the audacity of her pitch not just as a business opportunity, but as a possibility that could disrupt the norm. It sparked a flicker of hope inside her. Just as she believed she had captivated him, he snorted, cutting through her rising optimism. "Your grandmother's gumbo," he repeated, the condescension slipping back into his tone. "That's cute, but what do you think will happen when we try to market nostalgia?" The dismissiveness landed like a slap. Mariah's heart quickened again, but instead of retreating to doubt, she dug deeper. How many times had she allowed others to define her worth? This was different. She was not just any employee trying to make a pitch. This was her legacy, and she would protect it with every ounce of her spirit. Gumbo isn't just nostalgia. It symbolizes togetherness, survival, and authenticity in a world craving sincerity. She shot back, her voice unwavering. People are tired of superficial experiences. They want connections, and authentic food is the perfect medium. Disbelief flashed across his face, but Mariah could sense it giving way to the faint beginnings of consideration. Sitting across from him, she realized that every moment, every taste in her life had led her here. The laughter, the mockery, the failures didn't matter anymore if they propelled her forward. "So, let me ask you," she pressed, daring the confrontation further. "What kind of chef do you want to be? One who profits from sameness, or one who dares to break the mold and celebrate the forgotten?" Hartman's expression fluctuated, as if internally grappling with her words. It was a moment of reckoning, and she felt empowered. Every fiber of her being urged forward, not for validation, but to seek an answer. The weight of expectation that once shackled her loosened with each question she posed. In the charged silence that followed, two paths lay before her, one filled with conformity, the other with authenticity. Would Hartman recognize the quiet power of Mariah's vision? The words she had fought for, the dreams she had cultivated, now hung vulnerably between them, brimming with tension and possibility. Mariah felt the ground shift beneath her, as she realized she wasn't just trying to convince him. She was forging ahead into her future, but still, lurking beneath her resolve, was the anxiety of rejection. If he turned his back again, would she lose the momentum she had finally found? The stakes had elevated, and the air crackled with unspoken anticipation. Mariah was not only at the precipice of her culinary vision, but at the edge of a more profound personal evolution. Would this meeting become the vessel for her emancipation, or would it merely reinforce the walls she aimed to dismantle? As uncertainty threatened to cloud her growing conviction, she prepared for the next phase of their conversation, knowing that the moment of truth was imminent. The silence stretched, charged with anticipation as Mariah's heart raced. She caught a glimpse of uncertainty flickering in Hartman's eyes, and her resolve hardened. This was not just a business proposal, it was a declaration of who she was and what she stood for. The weight of her history pressed against the boundaries of his dismissal, daring him to see the depth hidden beneath her passion. "Look, Hartman," she continued, "what I'm proposing is not merely nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It's a reclamation of identity that transcends this cafe. We live in a world that thrives on diversity. People aren't just looking for something to eat. They're seeking experiences that resonate with authenticity." Each word resonated with a mixture of desperation and defiance, amplifying her determination. He studied her, leaning back slightly, a slight crease developing at his brow as he weighed her fervor. "You talk big, but you're selling a fantasy. A concept like yours costs money. You think the investors will eat this up?" His tone had shifted. It was sharper now, confronting the reality of her bold claims. The recognition of that cold truth stung, but it fueled her fire. Could she turn her vision into a tangible reality? "I believe they will," she insisted, her voice steadier than she felt. "Investors want returns on their investment, but they also want to be part of something meaningful, something transformational. If I can create a connection, a story that people are yearning for, they'll see it as an opportunity, not a risk." He leaned closer, seemingly intrigued despite his earlier skepticism. Mariah was throwing herself into the storm, and the exhilaration of that danger brought clarity to her thoughts. She quickly realized that this pitch was about her, not just the cafe. This was her moment to lift the veil of resignation she had hidden behind for too long. "Hartman, we could even emphasize sustainable sourcing, local ingredients that tell their own stories." Her eyes widened with visions of produce markets, hands reaching out for seasonal treasures that echoed her grandmother's kitchen. "We honor not just our heritage, but the local communities that sustain our craft." "If you're so confident, how would you even plan this? A menu, a concept, an identity, these are all intertwined. How would you tie that together?" His challenge was both an opening and a test. Mariah inhaled sharply, grasping for the threads of clarity. "Each dish can include a brief origin story, how it connects to its ingredients. Imagine guests sharing at the tables, talking, learning." She could feel the shimmer of excitement alongside her resolve. This isn't just food, it becomes a conversation. We invite people to engage with who they are just as much as what they consume. In that moment, she saw flashes of approval in his eyes. It wasn't full acceptance yet, but it was something, an acknowledgement that there was merit in her vision, an undeniable spark ignited by her words. Yet the nagging fear of failure hung like a dark cloud. What if he still dismissed her? What if the world remained blind to her truth? She needed to solidify her stance, not only for Hartman, but for herself. The stakes had risen, and doubt began to creep back in. "Challenge me, Hartman. If you believe my vision isn't viable, let's test it. Give me the opportunity to create a pop-up event, just one meal. Let the food speak for itself." The proposal burst forth, raw and unrefined, but the energy behind it thrummed with purpose. Hartman's face revealed a mix of surprise and intrigue. Instead of rejecting her outright, he seemed to consider the weight of her challenge. "You have fire, Mariah, I'll give you that. But it takes more than spirit. It takes execution." "Then let me execute," she offered, her voice steadying with hope. "This is my legacy at stake, and I'll put everything on the line to make it happen." For a moment, relief washed over her. It was a potential breakthrough, an avenue to demonstrate her ethos and artistry. Yet, lurking in the depths of her mind was the truth. Every ounce of her being was invested in this, her identity woven into every ingredient, every dish. As Hartman nodded slightly, his expression unreadable, Mariah understood a crucial reality. Nothing would be guaranteed, and the journey ahead could still shatter her ambitions. Yet this was her moment to break free, to prove not just to Hartman, but to herself that she was the architect of her destiny. The step she would take from here could lead either to triumph or heartache. She felt the weight of her determination solidifying her future as she awaited his next word. "The time has come to face my past," she thought, determination setting her heart ablaze as their conversation shifted. But would this confrontation with Hartman cement her destiny, or unravel it completely? Mariah felt a swell of determination as Hartman studied her for what seemed like an eternity. His gaze was unreadable, but she could sense a shift occurring within him. The potential for acceptance dangled tantalizingly in the air, yet the nebulous edge of skepticism lingered. The anticipation morphed into pressure, each heartbeat echoing in her ears like a countdown to an uncertain fate. "All right," he finally spoke, his voice steady but still cautious. "Let's say I give you this opportunity. You have 1 month to make this pop-up a reality. Prove to me and to yourself you might need it. that you can transform this idea into something more than talk. The rising tide of exhilaration buried her doubts momentarily. A month that meant countless hours of planning and execution lay ahead. But it also left room for her vision to grow, to take root in the soil of her past and flourish into something formidable. "Yes," she exclaimed, unable to restrain her enthusiasm. "I'll assemble a menu that tells a story, and I'll curate the atmosphere to engage the senses. The food will embody heritage. The space will resonate with history." As she spoke, ideas flourished in her mind, bright, vivid images of vibrant dishes and lively conversations buzzing through a space where tradition met modernity. "Whoa, hold on!" Hartman raised a hand to stop her. "This needs to be planned meticulously. You need not just enthusiasm, but strategy. What's your concept, and how will you execute it?" Anxiety clawed at the edges of her excitement. Strategy. Did she have the skills to maintain both passion and practicality? I can start by identifying the local farmers and suppliers to ensure freshness and sustainability. Then I will draft a menu that highlights cultural connections. But can you handle the logistics, the marketing, the customer engagement? His questions were like arrows, each aimed at the vulnerabilities she struggled to acknowledge. "I can," she asserted, steeling herself against the surge of self-doubt. She could face those logistics. She could organize, market, and deliver an experience. "I'll reach out to my network, friends who are talented chefs and designers. We'll collaborate on this." His eyes narrowed slightly. Networking is one thing, execution is another. You have to be prepared for setbacks. The moment you encounter failure, what will you do? The question hung heavy in the air, and Mariah's mind raced with sparks of resilience. Failure was a possibility, but so was success. The weight of either potential pressed against her chest. "I'll adapt," she responded, awe at her own conviction rippling through her. "Every dish will require feedback. I'll listen, I'll learn, and I'll refine based on the experience of our guests. If something isn't resonating, I'll change it." "That's the spirit," Hartman replied, though his demeanor remained cautious. "But be prepared. The reality of this business can be brutal." Walking away from the confrontation, Mariah felt the kaleidoscope of emotions swirl within her. Hope battling with insecurity, inspiration colliding with dread. The next month would test her grit, her creativity, and her determination. If she wanted to establish herself as not just a dreamer, but a doer, she would need clarity of purpose. In that reflective moment, stitch by stitch, she started knitting together her vision amidst wavering confidence. With each task she imagined, a flicker of resolve ignited. It wasn't just about Hartman or any investors. It was about demonstrating her authentic self and her culinary heritage. She spent that evening poring over her grandmother's old recipes, each one infused with memories and lessons. The kitchen would be her sanctuary, where history met innovation. The goal was clear now. She wouldn't just be reclaiming a space. She was reclaiming her voice in a world that often overlooked those who spoke softly. The following weeks would unfold with unrelenting demands, strategizing menus, sourcing ingredients, and galvanizing support from her network. She was aware that every moment would be a reflection of her growth, a roadmap demonstrating the overhead of fear against the backdrop of determination. Yet as she savored the taste of poignant clarity, a shadow creeped into her thoughts. What if connecting to her own past meant facing old traumas she thought she had buried? Could her personal story withstand scrutiny alongside her culinary creations? The tension grew, becoming an undercurrent as the date of the pop-up approached. The blending of her culinary journey with her personal story was profound. But could she stand unashamedly in the face of it all? With one last glance at her grandmother's recipes, she breathed deeply. This was about more than just food. It was a journey to her core identity. Could she face fully the woman she had become through this endeavor, or would it pull her apart at the seams? Determined to confront that uncertainty, she resolved that the truth within her had to be navigated, no matter how suffocating the weight. Embracing the chaos ahead, she readied herself for the unfolding story, knowing this was only the beginning. But the real question loomed. Was she prepared for what lay beyond the threshold of her past, ready or not? The days slipped by like grains of sand through an hourglass, each one tightening the grip of apprehension around Mariah's heart. The kitchen transformed into a canvas of chaos, flour dusting the countertops and vibrant spices lining the shelves like a rainbow of possibility. Yet within this bustling whirlwind, an unsettling anxiety simmered beneath her fervor. She was chasing a dream, but was she truly capable of realizing it? Her intentions crystallized into a clear vision, but execution proved more daunting than anticipated. As she navigated a labyrinth of logistics, reminders of her past shaped her perspective, a duality of inspiration and fear. Each decision was a thread, weaving an intricate tapestry of her life experiences, from joyful family meals to the stinging criticisms that had once hollowed her confidence. Mariah found herself seeking reassurance from her network. She curated a group of support, pulling in friends talented in culinary arts and design. Yet every time they met, she felt a restless wave of doubt crash against her facade of confidence. In meetings filled with food discussions and creative ideas, the cacophony of her insecurities echoed louder than the laughter shared around the table. "Mariah, your grandmother's recipes are gold," Celia, a chef and friend, pointed out as they discussed potential dishes. "Don't dilute them with unnecessary flair." The sincerity in her voice carried weight. Yet underneath that encouragement lay sharp feedback that quickly became a catalyst for introspection. Was she really honoring her heritage, or was she merely trying to conform to newly formed ideals of what culinary experiences should be in the current era? "Celia, what if people don't connect with these dishes?" she asked, her voice shaky as memories of past criticisms loomed in the back of her mind. "The last time I believed in a vision, it led nowhere." Celia paused, handing her a stirring spoon as if it were a scepter of empowerment. "Stories are forged in the fire of our truths. Your voice matters. Lean into that." The words cut through her doubts, igniting a spark she hadn't felt in weeks. There was a truth to uncover, an authenticity that existed beyond the pressures of approval. Yet despite that newfound resolve, the undercurrent of chaos dragged her thoughts into darker territories. Old traumas tugged relentlessly at the seams of her determination. Mariah remembered the moments of feeling too small, overshadowed by the loudness of others' expectations. How could she merge the fragility of those moments with the bold flavors she wanted to present? The week saw her making headway and faltering in equal measure. She refined the menu but hesitated to finalize it. Each dish became a mirror of her fears, an unveiling of her vulnerability. Should she include her grandmother's beloved gumbo, although critics in the past had mocked its authenticity? Each tasting caused a wave of vulnerability, forcing her to reconcile past pains with the need to move forward. With days dwindling before the pop-up opening, Mariah spent an evening alone, illuminating the kitchen with candles and surrounding herself with the flavors of her childhood. She prepared her grandmother's gumbo, the scent transporting her to warm, cherished memories. As she stirred, the weight of expectation began to dissipate, replaced by a gentler clarity. She recalled her grandmother's words of resilience, about the courage required to face the world as a proud woman of her heritage. "It's okay to reclaim your truth," Mariah whispered to herself, the steam rising from the pot fogging the air around her. "Your story deserves to be told, even if it's met with harsh judgment." Somewhere within her, the realization settled. She had to honor her complexity, embracing the duality of pride and vulnerability. This wasn't just about food, it was about crafting a narrative that held both her lineage and her personal evolution. The following day would demand monumental courage, as every dish was weighed against the haunting measure of self-doubt. But just as she felt ready to embrace that challenge, a sudden message pinged on her phone. A rekindled connection from her past had reached out, bringing with it the specter of someone she had hoped to distance herself from. Would this be a disruption, or a confrontation she needed to navigate? With a deep breath, Mariah prepared to face whatever road lay ahead. This isn't just about the food, she thought, heart racing. This is about me. Unbeknownst to her, this unexpected reconnection could either bolster her resolve or unravel everything she had built. And thus she stared at her phone screen, heart-pounding. What had she truly signed up for? Mariah's fingers trembled as she read the message again, her heart racing with a chaotic rhythm. The name behind the text, a ghost she thought she had laid to rest, demanded her attention. She had spent years cultivating her own identity, working to shed the skin of her past. The arrival of that message felt like an unwelcome echo, reminding her of the insecurities she had struggled to confront. Taking a breath, Mariah redirected her focus, refusing to allow her past to hijack her present. She had put too much effort into reclaiming her narrative to let an old acquaintance derail her. A quick reply clawed at her mind, but a moment of clarity stopped her fingers from flying over the screen. Instead, she took a step back and allowed herself to ponder her next move. What did she want from this interaction? While wrestling with her thoughts, Mariah returned to the kitchen, the warmth surrounding her a sanctuary amidst the brewing tempest in her mind. The vibrant colors of her ingredients beckoned her, hopeful reminders of everything she could create and everything her past had contributed to her journey. She reached for fresh herbs, feeling their vitality energize her. With each chop and stir, Mariah reflected on how she could use this distraction to deepen her self-awareness. What lessons would emerge from navigating a confrontation with someone who once cast shadows over her confidence? As she sliced into a bright yellow pepper, she felt an urge to confront the tangled emotions that had surfaced alongside her past. She prepared a vibrant salad packed with textures, crunchy, soft, fiery. It reminded her of life, every component distinct, yet together they formed something much bigger than any individual piece. The metaphor was not lost on her. Each dish was a fusion of her struggles, memories, and aspirations. After tensely assembling her creation, she plated it beautifully. It served as both a distraction and an empowerment practice, a reminder that she could indeed transform her vulnerabilities into a dish worthy of admiration. With a satisfied breath, Mariah decided it was time to respond to that lingering message. Instead of allowing fear to dictate her instincts, she crafted her reply with intention, steadying herself as she hit send. This act was her declaration, a commitment to face whatever lay ahead without retreating back into the shadows of insecurity. The reply was simple, acknowledgement of the past mentioned, but also a line drawn in the sand. It's good to hear from you. Let's keep things civil. Glancing at the clock, she realized that she couldn't allow herself to linger in uncertainty. Time was slipping. The pop-up was only days away. The tools she needed now were not only culinary, but also psychological. Mariah tackled her menu once more, the weight off her shoulders, a subtle but powerful shift. She realized that confronting her past was not just about dealing with individuals, but also accepting the aspects of herself that had been buried under judgment and critique. Even as she pushed through the hours, skillfully navigating culinary challenges, she felt a burgeoning strength. Each completed dish was a meditation, a reclaiming of her truth, and a celebration of her story. The flavors she curated served as her protest against the doubts that attempted to suffocate her ambitions. Yet late at night, the echoes of her past continued to haunt her dreams. each unresolved fear surfacing to remind her of the formidable journey ahead. The last pivotal moments before the pop-up revealed not only logistical stress, but an emotional terrain she hadn't adequately prepared to traverse. Before sinking into sleep, she stared at the ceiling, contemplating whether confronting that figure from her past might summon ghosts or grant her the closure she desperately sought. The recognition of having a power she could claim over her past invigorated her, but the unease lingered. In the dim light of her kitchen, Mariah sat, balancing the weight of expectation and the fear of judgment on a fine edge. Was she ready to not only share her dishes but also her story? The thought pounded in her mind, urgency building. This wasn't just about cooking or business, it was fundamentally about her. Just then, another message pinged. "I need to talk," it read. But this time it was from Celia, who had sensed Mariah's growing tension leading to the opening. "What's going on?" she texted back, heart pounding once more. What would this conversation reveal as she stood on the precipice of vulnerability and triumph? The narrative of her life was teetering on the edge. Would this next step ground her or urge her to leap into yet another intertwining conflict? Mariah stood at the precipice of transformation, her heart racing with restless anticipation as she approached the day of the pop-up event. She had channeled the culmination of her story into an intricate menu filled with bold flavors and cultural narratives. This was not merely about food, it was a powerful declaration of her identity and an invitation for others to engage with those stories. In the days leading up to the event, she rallied her support network, curating a team passionate about culinary artistry. Each member brought their expertise to the table. Designers beautified the space, while fellow chefs assisted with the cooking. Underneath the pressure, a profound sense of purpose began to solidify within her. This was the manifestation of her dreams, finally taking shape beyond the confines of her imagination. As the evening began, the cafe pulsed with excitement. Guests mingled in anticipation, their chatter blending with the fragrant notes wafting from the kitchen. Mariah felt a spark ignite within her. The years of toil, the judgment, the insecurity, they had all led her to this moment. She was not merely a waitress anymore. She was a chef, a storyteller, and the architect of her destiny. Stepping into the spotlight, she welcomed her guests with a mixture of pride and trepidation. "Tonight, you will not just taste food, you will experience a journey through my heritage," she began, her voice steady as she took ownership of the narrative. The connection she had meticulously crafted with the dishes flowed through her, and she embraced the connections between food and the human experience. As the first course was served, her grandmother's gumbo, she watched the expressions of the guests transform from curiosity to delight. With each bite, memories of her childhood flooded back, and she found solace in the familiar blend of flavors. The laughter around the tables resonated with her, creating an atmosphere that reminded her of family gatherings filled with warmth and love. As the evening unfolded, she seamlessly navigated through discussions and engaged with guests about the significance of each dish. Their curiosity ignited her confidence. The taste of acceptance filled the air. The room felt alive, vibrating with appreciation for the stories woven through her culinary creations. This was evidence of the potential that lay within her, bridging the gap between her past and her evolving present. Then as dessert approached, a daring fusion of modern techniques and traditional sweets, the unexpected happened. Hartman walked in, the very person who had once mocked her. Their eyes met, and she felt a sudden rush of conflicting emotions. Instead of retreating, she resolved to face him head-on. "Welcome," she said firmly. "Would you care to join in on the storytelling?" He approached, his demeanor less authoritative, almost contemplative. "I wanted to see what you've accomplished," he admitted, a hint of vulnerability crossing his features. As he took a seat, Mariah presented him with the dessert, a rich, spiced chocolate cake infused with flavors from her childhood. "This dish speaks to redefinition," she said, "an act of reclaiming my story." Hartman took a bite, and she watched as his expression shifted from skepticism to genuine surprise. "This is remarkable," he murmured, and she felt an unexpected thrill of validation. It had been a long journey. She had conquered the weight of judgment, and now she was standing firmly in her truth. As the night continued, Mariah was approached by food critics and fellow chefs, all eager to taste her dishes. They praised her innovative approach, and she basked in the recognition she had long wanted. With each compliment, she felt the lingering shadows of her past diminish, replaced by the light of newfound confidence. Hours later, as the final guest departed, she found herself wrapping up, surrounded by her colleagues. A calm euphoria settled over her. She had achieved something monumental, but more than that, she had transformed. No longer burdened by past mockery, she had emerged victorious, fully aware of the power that lay within her resilience. With a smile, she raised her glass, a toast to her journey, to reclaiming her truth. "Here's to embracing who we are and not being defined by others," she declared, her heart brimming with contentment. In that moment, Mariah knew she had not only embraced her passion for cooking, but had also demonstrated her ability to rise above self-doubt. Finally, the fleeting taste of ascribed identities fell away. She realized that she had achieved more than culinary excellence. She had forged a path of authenticity, a visual narrative that would inspire others to reclaim their own stories. This was just the beginning. The intoxicating flavors lingered in the air, as did the warmth of acceptance. She had not just proved herself to others, but had proven her worth to herself. With clarity and affirmation, Mariah stepped confidently into her future, a destination where she would continue to cultivate her story, one dish at a time. And so the call for you reverberates now. Subscribe immediately to the channel for more exclusive emotional stories that will inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and elevate voices like Mariah's. Comment below with your thoughts and theories about her journey. Join the conversation. And don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of overcoming adversity. It's time to support stories of individual triumph.